Welcome to the Transition series of presentations. I am Sheldon Lincenberg. I am a plastic surgeon with many transitioning clients. As a way of getting to know my clients better, I have explored some cultural topics with focus on the trans community. For the first installment of what I hope is a series of videos, we will explore transgender characters in graphic novels. The genre goes back 100 years, but there seems to be an 80-year hiatus of gender binaryism that lasted until the 1990s. Liberal thought about gender fluidity in graphic novels is a relatively recent development. All too often, portrayals of transgender characters in fiction are all about the character being transgender. All other information about them takes a back seat to their transition narrative. Very recently, we are being reintroduced to characters that are transgender and are involved in life situations which are augmented by their transition experience. Let's begin. The overwhelming majority of trans people portrayed in graphic novels are male to female. This ratio does not mirror our population in general, and I can only wonder if the graphic novel industry is attempting to appeal to their readership of graphic novels or comics as we know them. The big two comic publishers, Marvel Comics and DC Comics, steered clear of transgender characters until the 1990s. In the last 5 years, independent publishers have developed characters with much more depth and complexity. The earliest significant mention of a transgender character is in Ozma of Oz. Published in 1907, it was the third book of L. Frank Baum's Oz series. This is better known as the Wizard of Oz series. It was the first in which Baum was clearly intending a series of Oz books. Princess Ozma is a fictional character from the land of Oz. She appears in every book of the Oz series except the first, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. While still an infant, Ozma, the baby daughter of the former King Pastoria of Oz, was given to the witch Mombi of the North by the Wizard of Oz. Mombi transformed Ozma into a boy and called him Tip in order to prevent the rightful ruler of Oz from ascending to the throne. Thus, Ozma spent her entire childhood with Mombi in the form of the boy Tip and had no memory of ever having been a girl. She is the rightful ruler of Oz, and Baum indicated that she would reign in the fairyland forever, being immortal. Baum portrayed Ozma as an exceedingly benevolent and compassionate ruler who never resorts to violence and who does not believe in destroying even her worst enemies. When Ozma met Dorothy, Oz's greatest heroine, she immediately liked her and they became best friends. By the 6th book, Ozma arranges at Dorothy's request for Dorothy and her family, Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, to move into the palace. In The Lost Princess of Oz, the first page mentions that Ozma loves Dorothy very much, and by page 2 says that Dorothy is the only one privileged to enter Ozma's rooms without an invitation. Ozma made Dorothy a princess of Oz early in their friendship, and Dorothy often represents her when her adventures take her away from the Emerald City. L. Frank Baum concluded The Marvelous Land of Oz with the revelation that Princess Ozma, sought by the protagonist, had been turned into a boy as a baby, and that Tip, who had been searching for her, is that boy. He agrees to the reverse transformation, but Glinda, the good, disapproves of shape-shifting magic, so it is done by the evil witch Mombi. Tip seized his life from Ozma. Interestingly, Shirley Temple was considered for the role of Dorothy Gale in the 1939 movie musical The Wizard of Oz, but she was passed over in favor of Judy Garland. Temple eventually portrayed Princess Ozma in a 1960 television production of The Marvelous Land of Oz, in which she also portrayed Tip. Kate Godwin, also known as Coagula, made her debut in the issue of Doom Patrol published in September of 1993, and quickly made an impression as one of the first ever transgender characters in DC Comics history. Created and written by the amazing Rachel Pollack and penciled by Scott Eaton, Coagula's appearance stood out in a landscape where LGBT issues in comics had been limited to very few events, such as Marvel's North Star coming out in Alpha Flight in 1992, and DC's Pied Piper coming out in The Flash in 1991. Appearances by LGBT characters were practically non-existent in the big two comic producers. That was until Coagula showed up. Kate gains her powers while working as a prostitute. One of her customers is Rebus, a radioactive hermaphrodite. After Kate has sex with them, she discovers she can coagulate liquids and dissolve solids at will. She first tries out for the Justice League, but is rejected by them. She meets the Doom Patrol while battling a villain called the Codpiece, who has devices such as a gun, a drill, and a spring-loaded boxing glove built into a special codpiece he designed and built. Coagula dissolves the device. Early on, Kate is identified as a lesbian, but as the series progresses, it becomes clear she is bisexual. If 1993 is the awakening of the comic world, just a few years prior to that, the video gaming world introduced its first transgender characters. Originally in the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, Berto was a male dinosaur cross-dressing as a female, hence the bow, though Nintendo decided to take away its gender in the American version of the game. Berto is the longtime enemy of Mario. Super Mario Bros. 2 is a platform video game developed and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The game was first released in North America in October 1988. Berto, known in Japan as Catherine, is a pink, anthropomorphic creature who wears a red bow on her head and has a round mouth that can fire eggs as projectiles. Her first appearance was as an enemy to Mario. However, in the first edition manual for the North American release of Super Mario Bros. 2, Berto is referred to as a male who believes he is female and would rather be called Berdetta. Berto is often lauded as the first transgender video game character. Berto's partner is known as Yoshi, a fictional anthropomorphic Dryosaurus dinosaur who appears in video games also published by Nintendo. Poison is a fictional character in the Final Fight and Street Fighter series of video games. Originally conceived as a transgender female thug in Final Fight, the character's status as potentially a trans woman, consciously left ambiguous by the developers, has remained a topic of frequent debate by both fans and media alike. Commentary in the e-zine All About Capcom about her ending in the video game suggested that the character may have received sex reassignment surgery. Producer Yoshinori Ono, when asked in an interview about the matter, stated, "Let's set the record straight. In North America, Poison is officially a post-op transsexual woman, but in Japan, she simply tucks her business away to look female." The characters were originally planned to be female, but were changed to new halves, a Japanese term for pre-op trans individuals, after the game's release, due to the suggestion that hitting women was considered rude in America and the concern that feminist groups would sue. As the exact nature of Poison's status as gender variant has been left deliberately ambiguous by Capcom, the topic has remained a popular subject for debate among fans and gaming media alike. Several video gaming reviewers have weighed in. Electronic Gaming Monthly's Eric Patterson described her as being a significant character to the trans community and a perfect example of how it is so awkward when it comes to knowing how to deal with characters who aren't white, male, and heterosexual in video games. Complex pointed her out as an example of stereotypical depiction of trans hookers, listing Poison among the 15 most stereotypical characters in video games. Games Radar commented, Poison holds a distinction as one of gaming's first trans characters, which began as a strange choice in localization, but has become a part of the character that she wears with pride. If you take issue with it, that's your problem, not hers. It's that kind of confidence that makes her so appealing. Joystick named her their favorite character of the Final Fight series, stating that her hypersexualized appearance and random flipping made the character memorable, and that the controversy over her gender made the character even more so. Mantra is an American comic book series written by Mike Barr, mainly penciled by Terry Dodson, and published by Malibu Comics in the mid-1990s, until it was purchased by Marvel Comics, leading to the cancellation of the title after 24 issues. Mantra comes from the character Lucas. Lucas's story begins in the year 451 AD, when he was called into the service of the wizard Archimage against the evil wizard Boneyard. Their differences would cause a centuries-long conflict between the two wizards. Boneyard easily defeated Archimage and decimated his forces. In a final, desperate attempt to thwart Boneyard, Archimage cast Lucas into a woman's body to strengthen his magical ability and provided him with mystic artifacts which could be used to enhance those talents. That body belonged to Eden Blake, an attractive divorcee and mother of 2 young children. To put it mildly, Lucas was not at all happy with this arrangement. Because Lucas lacked armor for a woman's body, Ultra Force's Topaz gave Mantra some armor. Character development related to gender identity is not dealt with in this relatively early appearance of transgenders in comics. The early 2000s saw little new development of trans characters. In 2014, we have Trans Cat, America's first transgender lead character of her own ongoing series. Nave Murdoch is the cartoonist. Trans Cat, the chronicles of a young transgender superhero who has sworn to defend the weak and fight crime in her city using her powers of at-will gender changing, kung fu, and corny jokes. Murdoch says, I'm in the planning stages of the Trans Cat graphic novel, which I'm hoping to release summer of 2018. In 2015, along came Chalice, an independent version of Marvel's X-Men known as Alters. As the world struggles to accept the emergence of these alters, a young woman begins her transition from male to female, only to find herself also transitioning into a powerful alter. Faced with persecution by the multi-powered fascist known only as Matter Man, she will face the world as Chalice, a hero for a new age. Chalice is a new superhero who can manipulate gravity so that she can fly. Chalice is also Charlie Young, a male college student who, unbeknown to his family, is beginning to transition to female. Unlike most superheroes who have to maintain one secret identity, Chalice has 2. But as Chalice navigates the path to becoming her true self, she must juggle the complications of her civilian life and the responsibilities of her newfound power. And so begins Alters, a series from Aftershock Comics that introduces Chalice in a central role. Mr. Jenkins said that he had always planned for a transgender superhero in the series, but Chalice didn't fully take shape until he met a fan, Liz Lu'u, in 2014 at a convention panel about creating characters. Aftershock's founders are John Kramer and Lee Kramer, a father and son with extensive film and television experience. Brian Stelfreeze, who is black and is currently drawing Marvel's Black Panther series, written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, will provide covers. Lila Lies is handling the interior pages, and Tamara Bonvillain, who is transgender, is the colorist. Kim and Kim is written by Magdalene Visaggio, a trans woman herself, and was released in 2016 by Comixology. Kim and Kim are 20-something besties out to make a name for themselves in the wild world of interdimensional cowboy law enforcement. Being a trans woman is just one facet of Kim Q's character, and Kim is much more interested in exploring the other aspects of her life than it is in functioning as a story about being transgender. This storyline focuses on the power and meaning of female friendships. Kim and Kim is an LGBTQ positive series that features a richly diverse cast of characters, including both of the Kims, one of whom is trans, and hugely important for Visaggio to write, as she was undergoing her own transition process. Kim and Kim represents such a positive portrayal for precisely this reason, quoting, "The fact of our transness certainly holds influence in trans women's lives, but it is far from the only important thing about us." And so concludes the first chapter of the Transition series. As other transgender graphic novel and video game characters are developed in the future, they will find their way into this documentary. Thank you for your attention.